everyone. Welcome back to the Allison+Sports podcast series. I'm Shane Wynn. Glad to be here with you today. It is Women's History Month. It is the month of March, and today is International Women's Day, and we are thrilled to have Hazel Clark as our guest today. Hazel is the Director of Global Sales and Business Development for the Bermuda Tourism Authority, but that ain't it. She's a three-time U.S. Olympian in track and field, 5 NCAA titles. She's the only undefeated woman in SEC competition history. Let that one sink in. University of Florida Hall of Fame athlete and a former Nike-sponsored athlete. Welcome, Hazel.
Thank you so much. I love that intro, Shane. I appreciate that. Shane, and Ashley. I'm happy to be here celebrating International Women's Day.
Awesome. And I'm joined by my frequent partner in crime, Shane Arman of Allison+Sports, and Ashley Nashler, who is the general manager of our Atlanta office here at Allison & Partners. And Ashley, you and Hazel go a little bit back, right?
Yeah, just a little bit. I'll date us here, although I don't ever mind aging because I think it's a good story to tell when you include your age. But Hazel and I were teammates at the University of Florida, and I had the great pleasure of being with her as a teammate and being coached by her brother, the world accomplished JJ Clark. So it was a good time in my life, and then I've managed to convince her to stay friends with me ever since. And so when I knew you all were going to be speaking with her, I just jumped at the opportunity to join in the conversation, as I often have over the years with Peachy, which is what I call her and her friends call her. So
yes, I have to say, Ashley didn't have to do much convincing. She's a phenomenal friend. I absolutely adore her. I'm so excited to have her on this podcast. We have so much history, so many laughs, so many good times. So this is really exciting today.
All right. Well, let's get into it. Let's go in the Wayback Machine just a little bit. Let's start at the year 2000, right? So let's talk about the Sydney Olympics. And you qualified in the 800. Your sister qualified. Your sister-in-law qualified. Y'all head to Sydney. Let's talk about that.
Well, yes, that was quite a year. And to talk about it, I have to give some context to everyone listening. So for the Olympic team, you have 3 positions in each event. So there were 3 positions for the United States, and there were 3 people in my family trying to get those 3 positions. So I would often be like, okay, how's this going to work out? Who's going to be sitting home crying? Because there's no way all 3 of us are going to comprise the U.S. Olympic team. So there was a lot of hoopla going into the trials, a lot of, questions, can the Clark family sweep, and a lot of pressure, quite frankly. And so I just remember that time of me just feeling like, can I really step out of the shadows of my older sister and sister-in-law, find my own place and make my first Olympic team? And my friends, Ashley and my teammates, were really great about supporting me through the nerves, which I really struggled with. So that was how I got up to the 2000 Olympic trials. And once I stepped on the track, something took over all my training and my talent, and I was able to lead my family to a historic Clark family sweep. We took the first, second, and third positions at the Olympic trials and got to go to the Olympics together.
That's for any person who has never been an Olympic athlete, of which there are many. I imagine it's really hard to describe the feeling of actually stepping out onto an Olympic track. Like what is it? What did it feel like?
I had chills. I remember holding back tears. Again, it was even more special. It's special when you're an Olympian, period, right? But imagine walking into this stadium full of people and the president of the United States is waving at you. The cameras at home are focused on you and your sisters. And there's so much pride from your country, from your community, from your coaches. It was especially special for my parents because, your kids are out there representing the country together. So I'll just never forget it. They put us right behind the flag because we were obviously a family story, and it was really amazing. It was.
That's awesome. So you had an early career that was amazing. You continued forward, clearly a very elite athlete. When you're an elite athlete, inevitably endorsements comes up, right? And we mentioned earlier that you were a Nike sponsored athlete, and I'm sure that wasn't the only endorsement deal that you were looking at or taking. Can you walk us through a little bit about how an athlete like yourself approaches that moment?
Yes. I don't think that I was as aware as I should have been. I look back and I'm like, it didn't hit me that I was going to have this professional career until my brother came to me and said, Adidas wants to sponsor you, New Balance and Nike. And we're kind of negotiating. I'm like, wow, like that was the moment where I was really just trying to be the best athlete I could be. I struggled with performance anxiety. So my mind was always on just trying to get through the race and hold it together. And so to know on the other side of that I had this professional career and all these opportunities was really exciting for me. In the end, my original kind of decision making, when I talked to Nike, it seemed like they really wanted to elevate me as a brand individually and really kind of utilize me in their marketing, in their advertisements. That was really important to me. And then also the community connectivity as an ambassador. I got to do a lot of talks and meet with young people. So it was beyond just wearing cool apparel and shoes. They really wanted to have a relationship with me as a person. And that relationship continues today. So I'm very glad that Nike was my first sponsor that I had a relationship with as a professional athlete.
Hazel, you talk about it continuing into today, and it makes me kind of go back in the Wayback Machine just a little bit. But there is a time in which every professional athlete obviously stops being a professional athlete as their career path. And I know there's been a lot of focus on that recently, obviously with Tom Brady retiring and people going, well, what will he do next? And so it made me think of you and, what that must have been like for you to transition from being a competition athlete in sports to focusing your career in sports, but not competing per se. What was that like?
Well, first I have to say, it's funny you bring up Tom Brady because someone came up to me and said, I think it's so annoying that he won't sit down. He's accomplished everything. Like, why doesn't he just stop? And I'm like, I get it because this is the untold story about this transition. It is one of the most daunting, overwhelming, stressful experiences that anyone could go through. I have a lot of friends, obviously, that are elite athletes, and you feel like someone threw you off the top of a building. No matter how much you prepare, financially, mentally, you are never prepared for the end of something you dedicated your whole life to. And for an athlete, this whole like transition and recreation of yourself happens at like 35 years old, like you're retiring and trying to recreate yourself. I remember I retired around that age and I looked at my resume and I was like, I've never had a career. I've never had a job. What am I going to do? Am I hireable? Like, are people going to laugh me out of their office? And so I had to like regroup and lean on everything that I learned as an athlete, that resilience, that learning to put your fears behind you and just go forward and represent yourself. I had to lean on all of that to get through that really tough phase because I felt a little bit lost, quite frankly. So that transition is challenging. A professional athlete that's had a career where you've been an athlete your whole life and have no kind of career experience, you've got to prove to people your value, right? And so I guess that's where my marketing career started because I had to market myself to these companies and say, look, my resume is empty, but I have something to offer. Like, give me a shot, let me in the door. And once they let me in the door, my career really took off. I proved myself, but it's all about getting people to see your value. And that's really, really hard.
So the title Director of Global Sales and Business Development for the Bermuda Tourism Authority, it sounds like a job I really want. And a lot of people probably really want, but let's talk about that for a second. So how long have you been there? How'd you get there? And what are you working on?
Well, I'll tell you, it's a cute story and I'll keep it condensed. I was brought to Bermuda for a speaking engagement about performance anxiety. My husband likes to run half marathons, recreation runner, and he came to the speech because he's had a little bit of nerves. And I saw him. He doesn't believe this. I noticed him in the audience. I thought he was cute. Went home, didn't say anything to him. The next day he came to a party where I was and he said, I came to your speaking engagement. We connected, went home. Fast track. He slid into the DMs. We connected. And before I knew it, I moved back to Bermuda. We were married. It was really happened quickly. But my point is that for me, I was at Coca-Cola Sports Marketing. And then I was the executive director of Georgia Track Club. And I had to take a chance. Wow, I'm going to Bermuda. I don't have a job. I don't know anyone there. Should I go for this? And when I came, they were advertising the director of sports business development at the time, sports sales. And I went for the role, got hired, and that was the beginning of this amazing career at Bermuda Tourism Authority that's brought me to being now the Director of Global Sales and Business Development.
Well, that's a fantastic story.
Yeah.
So I want to hit on your role, just to put a finer point on that. I would assume that in Bermuda, there's quite a market for golf.
Yes.
And, I want to ask you a question in the context of the larger, broader women's sports landscape right now. We're in Women's History Month. Of course, International Women's Day is today. But I think we've seen really a shift over the last couple of years in brands finally starting to recognize women's sports on an equal playing field, whether that is equal pay between, men's and women's professional soccer. We're seeing NWSL and WNBA think about expansion teams. And then from a golf standpoint, the first PGA and LPGA Tour combined event on the tour since 1999. So talk to us a little bit about how you found golf in your career, and then more generally, what you're most excited about for the future of women's sports.
Okay, great. No, I love that question. So I'll start with golf. It's really funny. Golf was never really on my radar as a sport that I was introduced to. I was introduced to almost every sport under the sun, but that was one my father missed. And when I moved to Bermuda, we had 4 sports that we identified as our core sports: sailing, endurance category, which is triathlon, cycling, golf, and tennis. And golf by far is probably our strongest vertical at this point. Not probably, it is. We have more golf courses per square mile than anywhere in the world. People don't know that. We host a PGA Tour event. Yes, Bermuda is built for golf. And so it was really about, building that vertical and making people aware in the United States, specifically the Northeast, where you can get to Bermuda in time for your afternoon tea time, making them aware of Bermuda, right? It's absolutely perfect. And so that's how I became kind of immersed in the golf community. It's funny because they really embrace me. I am the worst golfer. I wear the golf outfits. I have clubs, but I have a lot of work to do. But I found that there's this connection between athletes that it just transcends the fact that I'm a terrible golfer and I hang out on golf courses all the time. And, I'm starting to learn more and more about the sport, right? So it's really been amazing. I just spoke at the PGA show recently, and just to have golfers come up, I shared my story as a track and field athlete, but there are these connection points that everyone can relate to. And that's what I've learned, that no matter what sport it is, there are these connection points. But golf was a little bit intimidating to me. I think I always encourage women to get out there and try to play. A lot of business happens on the golf course, and women traditionally have been a little intimidated by it. We're missing opportunities because we feel like it's the boys' sport and we don't belong out there on the cart. But you got to dive in there and get out there for sure.
And, Hazel, you're hitting on so many of the sort of the key points and messages that Ashley and I are super familiar with. The PGA Tour Superstore is a client of ours, and really they've done such a great job of digging into a lot of those points that you hit, making the game more inclusive, understanding that there are new audiences coming into the game, both diverse and from a female standpoint. So hearing you talk about that is real validation, for a lot of the work that Ashley and I are doing for our PGA Tour Superstore client. And it's just exciting to hear that experience firsthand.
Yeah, I'm really proud of what you're doing. And I'm so proud of so many people that are kind of leading the charge around, diversity in the sport of golf. We have a celebrity golf tournament that we're bringing to the island soon. And we're really highlighting the importance of diversity and inclusivity through sport. And we have some heavy hitters, Dr. J and Sugar Ray Leonard coming, and just all these amazing athletes to get behind this, because we all understand the importance of sport as a unifying mechanism, as a way to kind of transcend color and socioeconomic background. And I think we got to get behind that. It's a very important tool, and it changes the trajectories of so many lives. So
fantastic time having a conversation with you today, Hazel. We greatly appreciate you joining us. Happy International Women's Day, everyone. And we will see you all next time on the Allison Sports podcast series.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I had a great time.